It's my honor to introduce to you Kate Pendry, who is a British actress, playwright, and voice performer. She's now based in Norway. However, there are some Austrian and even Moravian background in her ancestry, which we might be talking about later. Originally, Kate was invited to perform her piece Dinner with Putin together with Putin is skiing. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it as it was planned originally, but we are happy to have Kate here for a talk and maybe for some parts of her show, right? Okay, good. I would like to start with first question.
Before we do,
yes, please.
Hello, good evening. I speak not a word of Czech, and I'm very ashamed of that, but I speak other languages, but Norwegian is of no use to you. So I'm quite sensitive to space, and it's cold and damp, so I'm wondering if we should close the flaps there.
We will definitely start with
Close
this one.
flaps there. Brilliant, because then we have a embracing space. Wonderful. I find these small details like heat and sound powerfully affect any interaction between public and non-public, and we should not underestimate them. So thank you for that. Oops. I think it's brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay.
So my first question would be about your impressions about the show we have just seen.
I'm so aware, first of all, that I watched this on YouTube just to become aware of it. Thank you so much. Theatre is made to be seen live. I learned this in the pandemic. You can't stream theatre. It should be made illegal, the streaming of theatre, the filming of theatre, because this is a medium that has to be experienced in this way. And from the moment the play opens, with these powerful physical presences, then we're in real satire. Something that I was watching it on my laptop going, I get it. That's why I'm horrified that people should see filmed versions of my work and go, I get it, when the real power of it is in the room. So that's really important, particularly for this play. Putin is skiing, that the physical proximity. Is it always performed in the tent?
Is it always performed?
Yeah, it's a powerful medium. The smell, the physicality of the space, slightly uncomfortable, the associations. You have these wonderful random sounds that happen outside. Which somehow become a soundtrack to the play, and this is wonderful. But now I will say why the play breaks my heart, because it's a confirmation for me that the west of Europe, and I know that the Czech Republic is Central Europe. I need to share with you, as painful as it will be, that you are regarded by us in the West as Eastern Europe. Anything east of Vienna is Eastern Europe. This is a conceptual thing. Although geographically, you're way more west than Vienna is in Brno, this I know, but conceptually, I was told there would be like 2 or 3 people here because everyone is interested. So I'm always really confused when there's actually an audience. I prefer to play to nobody because that's what I've been used to until I did a show called My Dinner with Putin and started selling it out. I'm not being crass for the sake of being crass. I promise you I've given deep thought to this, and one of the enormous problems and conflicts we have at the moment is that Europe is utterly fractured. as is the United States. There is as much in common with Brno and Oslo as there is with New York and Arkansas. Little Arkansas. We are universes apart. As John F. Kennedy said, I like to quote Kennedy and Obama and Ibsen, let us try to find not that which divides us, but that which unites us. But this idea that we have shared sensibilities is deeply problematic. I'm going to be very honest with you and hope that this is not published. Apart from practical reasons which prevented us from bringing my dinner with Putin here, I made a very radical artistic choice born out of absolute fear. I did not believe that my work would be understood by you, not language-wise, not intellectually, but politically. I've been attacked a lot in my career, physically. I've had rape threats, death threats. That's what people do to you if you are, I find, a woman who says controversial things. I've been sued by the British royal family for saying very terrible things about Princess Diana. I was clearly proved right. We won that case, freedom of expression, but I'm very used to being attacked. And because I work on my own, and I'm not in an ensemble, it broke me. The last attacks that came to me were, and they're not always from the right wing. My beautiful, tolerant left wing has become, in some aspects, a hideous and hateful, intolerant ideology that wants to cancel and silence those who do not have the correct politics and are not on the right side of history. So I'm very careful. This is the first time I have come abroad in 12 years, largely because of our conversations, Lyšeň Theatre's presence and their wisdom and their interactions with me on the email. I felt that I could come and perhaps speak to you for the first time in 12 years. And I'm not joking, the attacks were so huge on me, I thought I can't even speak to my own people, let alone those abroad. I've managed to segue a question about this performance into all about me, so I'll go back.
No, please, no.
Oh, but I want to.
Okay. I will hold my question.
As citizen artists, because we're not artists, we're citizen artists, and I have to apologize on behalf of my community of artists, not you guys here, but my God, the rank and file narcissism of artists, particularly in Hollywood. The Oscars being used as a platform for massive virtue signalling, the most privileged people on the planet. We see it also with Harry and Meghan Markle, these people who I'm sure you're familiar with, who take it upon themselves to tell us, the great unwashed, that we have no empathy, that we must wake up and understand that terrible things are happening in the world. So as a citizen artist, I keep asking myself, how much is this all about me? And what is my job? And my job in Norway, in terms of illuminating the fog that surrounds us, enabling possibly some catharsis for the audience, as the saying goes, we go and hunt, we come back, we sit round the fire, and then we speak of the hunt, so that there will be a hunt tomorrow. It's just my job is to keep things going round. But my job in the West is very different from Lyšeň's job here. We have to speak different languages, and I'm not talking about languages. So what I noticed was Putinskiing, its style, radically different from the kind of style of theatre, certainly that I do, I can't speak for everyone, in terms of it is absolutely sure of itself morally and ethically. It doesn't set any questions at all. The play is absolutely makes it very clear from the get-go who this is in praise of, who this is in memory of, who is right and who is wrong. There is absolutely no middle ground. Now, this is a really valid form of theatre because you have to, as the Americans say, ignite your base. You have to preach to the choir, to get them riled, you have to remind them of what is wrong so that there can be energy there. my choice, living in the richest country in the world. I live in Norway. Oil money. A kind Scandinavian country with lots of equality. It also has the highest heroin addiction problem in Europe. Also has a greater disparity between rich and poor than the United States. That's right, just come in. That'll be right. That's quite comic, actually. I mean, Divadlo Líšeň, ladies and gentlemen, just upstaging the serious. It's so fucking funny. You gotta love these people. It's like some great meta commentary on Western actress holding forth. So the way I would speak to my people, the audiences that are available to me are different from how you speak. But I would also say what I also understood about the play was, my God, when this play was made in 2000, and correct me wrong, 7, 11? 6. How very different its impact would have been. It's a different story you're hearing. Now he's on the map. Everyone's talking about this now. So how ahead of your time you were. I began developing my show, My Dinner with Putin, before Ukraine. So I've had the same thing that they've had, which is, how did you know? It's like, I don't know, your radar is on, you pick up a good story, this was a good story, this needs to be told. People don't listen to you at first, and then suddenly he invades Ukraine. And we become, in essence, forgive me, but war profiteers. If we get audiences to buy tickets to our show, it's mainly because, well, certainly me, it's because of Ukraine. So it's absolute certainty of right and wrong is valid, but worries me, makes me very nervous, because we can speak of Putin's rise to power in this brilliant Brechtian satirical way, and satire is what we need now. It's our stand-up comedians who got us through the Trump era. It wasn't any politicians. Zelensky is a fucking comedian. And as I've said before, the difference between most fascists have one thing in common, personality-wise, is my theory. They have no fucking sense of humor. That's it. And if you define a sense of humor as the ability to think in a flexible way, to see a situation, look at it upside down, and go, my God, tragedy upside down is farce and comedy. And then you understand human life, it's a cognitive dissonance, we're all a paradox, we're all hypocrites, we have to be in flow and make the best we can of it. Of course, the rigidity of fascism doesn't allow for this. Trump has no sense of humor. I have a history of this kind of thing. I went to Trump's inauguration in Washington in 2017, just because, why not? I want to see this shit with my own eyes. And watching him, being that close to him as he received the crown, the Mad King, and this is what I want to come back to Putin's scheme, his people. We made a documentary, so we just interviewed Trump supporters. Hundreds of them were walking around on January the 20th, 2017, with T-shirts that had an image of Barack Obama, beautiful, kind, graceful, witty, intelligent, gorgeous, funny, crazy, wild, brilliant Barack Obama. A picture of him with a noose around his neck with the words, "Hang the nigger." And they had won the election, and they were, that gets out of here, he's out of here, he's out of here. You know, this looked too familiar. This was chaotic fascism. You knew from the get-go that the Capitol was going to be stormed a few years later. I went to the Women's March the day afterwards in Washington. I don't know if you remember it, with the pussy hats, and all of the people were marching against him, 1 million people in Washington, and I couldn't engage with the resistance because I just thought it wouldn't make any difference. I was so numbed by him and his absolute emptiness and his people who we interviewed, and I said, why have you? I didn't attack, because you have to listen to these people. You don't want to, but there's no point in having an argument with them, you know. I said, why did you vote for this man who, I would say to women, who clearly has an issue with women? And this woman said, y'all, you liberals, you don't understand. We know he's an asshole. That's not the point. He's our asshole. I don't take him seriously. Y'all liberals, you take him too seriously. He don't mean what he says when he says grab him by the pussy. It's just shit he's saying. Get a sense of humor. And I thought she was right. And then another woman who was a pro-life woman, anti-abortion, and she was there protesting against the protest march. I said to her, why do you support him when he's so clearly anti-women, you know? And she said, again, she said, you liberals, look at this march. This is supposed to be a woman's march for all women. And I said, yeah, exactly. It's inclusive. Everyone can be here. And I said, yeah, but this march is not for me. I don't believe in abortion. I vote for Donald Trump, you know. I don't believe a black man should be president. I'm a woman. Is this march also for me? No, of course not. So she illuminated a great hypocrisy, I think. And my question with Putin is, it's not my question at all, it's an observation. He didn't manifest out of the ether. It wasn't a big bang and there was Putin, or just Lenin and Stalin who decided. Although I think this is a brilliant image, and it absolutely draws together historical threads, getting rid of all of the noise and the chatter, which is really important. But it doesn't speak to the people who keep him in power, and who are culpable. Because the reason these people exist is because normal people, as I think Anna says at one point, forgive me while I check my notes, this cult of personality. All these people being in denial so that they don't have to be ashamed of themselves. And I think it's terribly human to look the other way. And I'm very, very curious about the people who voted for Putin and Trump. Catastrophic choices that they made en masse. Millions and millions and millions of people. We have to ask about that. So as beautiful and how very painful at the end as this play is, it troubles me because it leaves me as an audience feeling absolutely helpless. I know, and now I know even more than I knew. It's even worse. I did turn away because there's only so much information about the horrors that these people are inflicting that I cannot absorb. And I want to say to the theatre, don't just fucking leave and go to the pub afterwards, and say it's your responsibility, audience. Voila, we have illuminated evil, you fix it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And and I think that's also a really great feeling to have ignited as an audience. My frustration that I feel bad, and I assume the company is like, you feel bad? Think about people on the front line in Kiev. Seriously, honey, this is a first world problem. But I choose a different path, and mine is a very, what I thought was beautiful, the beautiful ley line connection between my play and Putin is skiing, the line, the West will not help you. They have nothing to complain about. So my play is an attack on my own people and our hypocrisy. The ones who shook hands with the oligarchs, who shook hands with Putin, right up to the point where you couldn't really shake hands with anymore. But everyone turned up at Sochi, you know, it was it. We've been in bed with that motherfucker and his people for years, turning a blind eye. The way that the oligarch, the fact that Abramovich bought Chelsea Football Club, I will never, I can't sleep at night because of this. And I make a joke about that, but the way that the oligarchs have infiltrated, raped beautiful cities of our countries with their almost violently animal greed for things, just to own properties, while there are people starving and homeless in the capital cities of Europe, and these huge, like tumors, empty buildings sitting empty, owned by these men whose money is made on the blood and slavery, and we watch it happen. The boroughs of London, the London city councils let these people buy those properties. They could have said no. The French are quite good at that. No, you're not French, you cannot own in Paris. You know, they're not quite that hard, but they would be. No, who are you? We need to do due diligence here. So my play is about our incredible hypocrisy. And Putin is skiing. Those who are presenting Putin is skiing are very pure, which makes me feel dirty, and that's on me. That's something I have to go home and think about. I don't have that ideological purity. I dwell in the grey zones, but I'm currently in a stage in my career, perhaps, where, as the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen once said when he was asked how he could possibly have dreamed up the disgusting play Ghosts, which is about syphilis and incest. He said, "This is so immoral, Herr Dr. Ibsen. Why did you make this disgusting play?" He said, "You misunderstand. Some people go into the sewer to bathe in it. I go there to try and clean it." So at the moment, I'm not watching the sewer from above and saying, "There's the sewer," which I think is a valid point. I'm actually pretty much in there, and you get pretty dirty when you're in there. Hence the insane situation I ended up in. My Dinner with Putin is a true story. I take some liberal, some licenses artistically, but that's why I ended up in that situation. We only have an hour, and one thing I've learned about myself, if no one stops me, I just keep talking. Apparently it's quite interesting usually, but you must stop me.
Okay, now I will stop you. I will leave my question for later.
Oh, thank you. Thank you that someone's awake.
You've already said so much about your dinner with Putin, and I think it's right time for you to read or perform some extras of it. May I ask you for that?
Absolutely.
I will clean the stage for you. I will close the door again.
So, I think I'll give you the opening scene, and then I'll give you the context of my dinner with Putin. But perhaps I'll tell you what audiences in Norway know. My Dinner with Putin is the true story of how I was offered a film part. I'm an actress. I'm very well known in Norway, not really anywhere else. I'm quite good at what I do. But I've had not a mainstream career because I've done so much weird, radical stuff. I've done a lot with virtual reality, artificial intelligence, a lot of performance art, a lot of political stuff. But I never had the big breakthrough like Kate Blanchett and Helen Mirren. I never got that. I was a performance artist. And that was always a source of great pain. And then suddenly, for a number of reasons which are clear, I was discovered, and I was offered a part in a film by a filmmaker called Nikita Mikhalkov, who is an Oscar-winning filmmaker. He's the most prominent Russian film director. He's won Oscars, the Palme d'Or. He's also a close personal friend of Vladimir Putin. But the kicker is, Robert De Niro was also in this film. It was an international film. I had a bigger part than De Niro. Mikhalkov just plucked me and said, "You. This was like a film. You can't make this up. This is like a Hollywood movie." So here I was about to be catapulted into some kind of serious stardom. And yet he was a close friend of Vladimir Putin's. And having gone from being a very liberal, beloved, legendary artist in the 60s, 70s and 80s, he's slowly become more and more culturally conservative and nationalist. His politics have changed. And last year on Red Square there he is standing next to Putin, proudly, proud of the fatherland. So what do you do? Maybe for you this is not any dilemma. But I truly believe that if you're honest with yourself, being in a movie with Robert De Niro, with an Oscar-winning film director. If I'm an actress, I don't know what your professions are, but think of the highest holy grail, and then imagine the price you pay for achieving that holy grail. If you're a musician, you can win a Grammy, but you're going to have to go and perform in Tel Aviv for Bebe Netanyahu, something like that. So I had this incredible dilemma. A couple of people have said it's no dilemma, and I've said it is. You don't understand how huge this is. This is a feature-length movie filming in Los Angeles, Cannes, New York, with Robert De Niro in it. And how come Robert De Niro gets to say yes to it with impunity, but I, as a nobody actress, have to stand and fly the flag? And I'm very tired as a woman in the arts. Constantly it's demanded of me that I do the right thing and turn down work because it's not the morally right thing. I'm going to be really honest with you. I can't do it anymore. I've been doing it for 50 years. Why can't I do what men do? It's much more complicated than that. But the background to it was certainly why this meant so much to me. I'm also an allegory. My hypocrisy, my moral dilemma is the moral dilemma of the West. That's why I made the play. I also don't have one because there's another behind-the-scenes story that I haven't talked about. This is the opening of the play. It's about 4 minutes long, where we get to understand some reason of why this meant something. And it goes something like this. I always wanted to be an actress, ever since I was a little girl. I have a memory of running down the aisle of a movie theatre in 1968, and the smell of cigarette smoke and popcorn and the feel of the soft carpet underneath. And when I got up to the screen, I saw that there were thousands of little holes poked into it. And even then I realised it was to let the sound through. And when I turned round to run back to my mum, I saw 100 people looking at me and smiling. And that's when I knew that I wanted to be an actress. At least that's what they told me about my childhood, which was dark, but some have it darker. And my childhood was lonely, but no more lonely than any other childhood without brothers and sisters. We lived in a basement in a working class part of London. It was very cool in summer, but it was terrifying in winter. And there was not much money at all, but there's always enough money for the movies, which my mum took me to. Grown-up movies in old flea pit cinemas, often in a double bill. The cigarette smoking here, it was entwined with marijuana smoke. It was the 60s after all, curling up, tendriling into the projector beam. My mother did not have any money for babysitters. She was a single mother. And she knew that if she wanted to continue to go to the movies because the movies were her life, she would have to teach me, her daughter, how to sit and watch movies with her. And so she taught me, don't fidget, watch the movie. Stop asking questions, watch the movie. If you don't understand, watch the movie. And if you're bored, it's because you're not watching the movie. And so I watched the movies from the age of 2. And I remember Rita Hayworth in that opening moment in Gilda, when the camera catches her and she turns and looks over her shoulder and her red hair tumbles down her alabaster black and white, and the light catches her teeth. I remember better Lauren Bacall in her breakthrough role taking a smoke with Humphrey Bogart. She was like a lioness, green-eyed. Her voice was like a deep river, cool and still, like molten lava. My mother did not like stupid women, but she loved Marilyn Monroe. So I remember Marilyn undulating down the platform in black and white, in Some Like It Hot. But I remember her better in Close-Up in River of No Return, and Marilyn in Close-Up shivered like the dying star she was, and you couldn't look away. I remember Joan Crawford in Mildred Pierce, in the noir shadows and the gunshots as she tried to save her murderous, spoiled, horrific daughter, and how she took the blame and was murdered herself for it. I remember Jane Fonda in Clute in 1972. She played a witty, hip, attractive, wise prostitute, and Donald Sutherland, who played the sensitive detective who fell in love with her and saved her, almost. I remember Rachel Roberts in 1974 in Picnic at Hanging Rock, in the suffocating heat of the Australian outback, watching as her schoolgirls climbed to their supernatural deaths, and how Rachel Roberts' Victorian character, the headmistress, started to drink and then threw herself from the rocks, suiciding in shame, just as Rachel Roberts, the actress herself, would suicide later in life by drinking bleach. I remember Mia Farrow in her little pixie cup demonic nightmare in Rosemary's Baby in the suffocating heat of New York. I remember also what Roman Polanski did to Catherine Deneuve in Repulsion, made her claw her way through the corridors of psychosis in black and white in 1965 in London. I remember Antonioni's Blow Up and how he used sound and silence to signify the insanity of the swinging 60s, the rustling of the wind in the trees, speaking of stories beneath stories. I remember the fat girls in the 60s. Shelley Winters in What's It All About, Alfie, and Lynn Redgrave in Hey There, Georgie Girl. I remember there were no women in Apocalypse Now, and it was fucking brilliant. My mother hated that film because she said it glorified war, and I said no, she'd missed the point, because she taught me how to watch the movies. I saw it in a late night double bill in 1979 along with Alien. And I remember Ripley and Sigourney Weaver. So yes, I always wanted to be an actress. The grown-ups who were around me at the time did not indulge my dream. They just shrugged their shoulders and walked away when I said I want to be an actress. So I stopped telling people that I wanted to be an actress, and instead I picked up at the age of 7 a copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare, and I learned a speech at random because I knew that's what you have to do if you want to be an actress. You have to prepare. And although I did not know what the words meant, I knew it's not what you do to the words, it's what the words do to you. If this shadow will offend you, think but this, and all is mended, that you are but sleeping here, while this vision does appear, and this weak and idle theme. I'm nothing, I'm just a dream. The school that I went to had kind and visionary teachers who wanted to help us, the poor kids in the poor part of London. So I remember in the summer of 1972 going into the school hall, and the curtains were drawn, and we watched Franco Zeffirelli's film version of Romeo and Juliet. And Olivia Hussey as Juliet with almond eyes and olive skin was perfection in close-up. Later I joined a youth theatre, and we did political plays by Bertolt Brecht, and I thought that was normal for 10-year-olds. I also knew this is what you have to do if you want to be an actress. This is what you have to do. Later still, I tried to get into drama school to train professionally. It wasn't easy to get into drama school, and I didn't tell anyone when I went to the auditions, and when I failed the auditions again and again and again and again, they never tell you why you're not good enough, you know, why you're not good enough to get in. So you quickly learn that the fault lies within yourself. And you learn that you have to keep going even if it's breaking you, because that's what you have to do if you want to be an actress, of course. And so I ploughed on, and eventually I did get into drama school one day in the mid-1980s. It was not a top school, it wasn't a famous school. When I told people the name of the school that I had gotten into, they would say, oh. But it was good enough because they taught me what to do with my voice and how to use my hands, and they taught me to accept humiliation, because that's what you have to do if you want to be an actress. When I graduated, there was not much work. I didn't go straight into a TV series. Instead, the work that I had was not paid, and it was closer to the end of the tube lines than to the glorious West End. It was in cellars and in pubs. I would often pay to play for one or two people. All this I did for many, many years. But they never wanted me for a film. I never made a movie, as they say in Hollywood. It's like an astronaut who trains for years at NASA, never gets to walk on the moon. I mean, what's the point? So that sets the scene for this creature, this person, this woman, of why she might end up. This beautiful line from Putin is skiing. The city is losing its sanity. You know, in the 60s and 70s with Margaret Thatcher, things were falling apart already. And I did have, I'm not having a wine fest, but certainly my background was very dark. My father wasn't around because he was spiraling into dreadful drug addiction and, you know, not complaining. We really didn't have any money, and this was really no money. I mean, often no electricity. It wasn't easy, and some have it darker, as I say. I don't make this a wine fest, but it's just for my mother, who you'll find out later why, the movies were her life, her solace, her comfort. Just a very quick reference. Stylistically, my show, what we did with my show was actresses who work alone are quite marginalised, especially if you're not Kate Blanchett or Helen Mirren, if you're not famous. And we often don't take the space that perhaps we should. I sort of haven't. What we did was something quite bold. It's all about the music of the text, as you've understood. I do know how to use my voice. There's many things in life I can't do. I'm no good at sports, you know. But I know what I'm doing, and I'm weaving a spell around you with language. So I don't have a lot of physical stuff. I have some. And what we did was we were bold enough to put me in the middle of a very large space. We certainly used some projections, but exquisite black and white lights. I'm in a black dress, just red lipstick, red, this black and white and red. And I hold these images as if it's a movie, and having the courage to stand as an actress, and a middle-aged actress as well, because make no mistake, when you've, as Amy Schumer, the comedian, says, when you've reached your last fuckable day, which is 50 for an actress, no matter, it's over. I mean, you're looked at as some hideous piece of flesh. And if you look at all the movies you know and love, look at the fucking Marvel universe. Yes, you can say, what about Helen Mirren? Helen Mirren proves only that there are lots of roles for Helen Mirren. You know, it's a really deeply problematic, and always has been. So we put me in the middle there, and I just weave the spell with language and light, not a black and white, as if it's a noir movie. And that's the difference between the two plays. You're using two very different aesthetics to try desperately to communicate with you. All we can do is we so want to just connect with you. Are you there? Are we alone in this horrible thing or not? Called life.
I would try to get back a little bit to Putin again, since this is the topic that kind of like binds both shows together. May I ask you, because when we were preparing for this talk, we talked with Kate and we tried to identify part of the play that could be interesting for the audience without performing the whole play. Could I ask you to perform this Tatiana and Warning when the dream becomes the truth, but...
So, later in the play, I've been offered the film part. Life has gone on. And I've been offered the film part, and literally, this is true, you couldn't make it up. I had a Skype meeting with Moscow, with Nikita Mikhalkov, which I have, so it did happen, because people are like, this didn't happen. I'm like, believe me, I'd have to be a genius to have made this shit up. I had the Skype, and literally 3 days later, and it was at the end of the Skype, I got a message saying, from the producer, hello Kate, wonderful to connect with you. We are all so happy that you are on board with the film. As we say, we will begin shooting in Moscow in March. This was before the Ukraine. We are just waiting for confirmation from Robert De Niro and Anthony Hopkins. And I had heard nothing about this up to this point. I'm not going to take it, I'm going to take it personally, obviously. I'm an actress, and it's fine, they've got something to do. And given the background of that opening scene, and I'm nobody, I've done weird art which I've won awards for, and I'm sort of famous in Norway, but all I ever wanted was to win an Oscar. I still think I will. I still think I'm that good, but you know. And you've got to have a dream, haven't you? So I get offered this part. And I'll pick it up from there. So when I tell a couple of people about this situation, and only 1 or 2 people, I don't shout it from the rooftops, and I say, I'm in a film with Robert De Niro. I don't even bother mentioning Anthony Hopkins, because then I think people really won't believe me. And 3 days after that Skype meeting, the world shut down because of the pandemic. So in that endless year without summer of the pandemic, I thought about him as if you think about a lover who's put you on hold. I couldn't get him out of my mind. And perhaps to keep him closer, to make the whole thing seem more real, I would Google him frequently and try to find out things about him. Or perhaps I was just doing due diligence because I knew he was not good, to try and uncover his warts and all. I spoke to a colleague of mine, a journalist, very left-wing, Russian, who now lives in Norway. And I told her that I had been offered a part in Nikita Mikhalkov's new film, and I asked her what she thought of him, and she made it very, very clear that he was bad news. She said he is a dictator and he is hated by all Russian artists. You know, he comes from a very privileged family, from the intelligentsia, from the elite. They were very, very elite. He's in great spiritual pain. It's all right, love. We'll get it off you today. Fucking bastards! Actually, no, we all want to do that. Sometimes I love the alcoholics. You fuck! What's that? I'm not going to go off-piste. He's a dictator and he's hated by all Russian artists. He comes from a very privileged family, you know, from the intelligentsia. I mean, he was very close to the state authorities, even during the Soviet times. You know, Nikita Mikhalkov's father, he wrote the words to both the Soviet and the Russian national anthem. Well, Nikita himself is the most prominent Russian film director. He made films that were acknowledged all over the world. They were in the Russian language, you know, but now he is hated, both on the personal level and on the professional level, and these are the reasons why. 1, he is very, very arrogant. 2, he will follow whichever political wind is most suitable and easy for him. At the moment it is Vladimir Putin and conservative values. 3, he used to have a car with emergency blue lights on it. And this meant that he could drive through downtown Moscow and all other vehicles had to move out of the way, even emergency vehicles, fire trucks and ambulances and such. He could just drive wherever he wanted to. Number 4, he can initiate the destruction of any building in Moscow if he wishes. even historic buildings which are protected, and then he can build a new hotel if this is what he wants. Despite any protests, he can just do this. Kate, I don't know how important any of this is for you. I have to live with that. I think of Nikita Mikhalkov demolishing buildings and pushing people out of the road when he drives by in his convoy, and I think of the bad boy of Hollywood, Sean Penn. And I think of the story of how Sean Penn and Jack Nicholson back in the day were invited by Nikita Mikhalkov to his dacha, and they said yes to the invitation. And as Sean Penn put it, he said it was the nature of the time and the place that we accepted the invitation. And as we were driving in this convoy, we were going as fast as they wanted to drive, with no care whatsoever for the danger that we presented in the villages that we were driving through. And if a farmer tried to pass in front of us in a pony-driven trap, the security people in our vehicles would wind down the windows and they would batten the farmers away and batten the animals away. It was all so needlessly aggressive, said Sean Penn. And when they arrived at Nikita Mikhalkov's dacha, there was Vladimir Putin. And Sean Penn said he was a creepy little bully. But Sean Penn stayed for 3 days, eating and drinking with the creepy little bully. And the creepy little bully, Putin, told Jack Nicholson that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was his, Vladimir Putin's favorite movie, and Jack Nicholson seriously asked Vladimir Putin if he would like to be the executive producer on his next Hollywood movie. And Putin said, yeah, maybe. I think about what Sean Penn means when he says it was the nature of the time and the place that we said yes to the invitation. And I think what Sean Penn is doing here is retro-conning. Retro-conning means retro continuity. It is film speak in Hollywood. It means you look at a past situation and then you reshape it to fit your current narrative, to make you look good. And it is a very, very, very human thing to do, is it not? And I also think if Sean Penn thought that Vladimir Putin was such a creepy little bully, why didn't he say something at the time? Sean Penn is a very, very powerful man, as was Jack Nicholson. But hey, what are you going to do? At that point, we were all still shaking hands with the Russians. I mean, there was Sochi, which was distasteful, but everybody turned up to it. They just told their queer athletes to keep their mouths shut. And then there was Qatar. Everyone turned up to that World Cup, even though the stadiums were built on blood. Because if you avoid every situation that shivers with a moral dilemma, well, you'll never get anything done in this life, will you? Sean Penn, Brad Pitt, Jack Nicholson, all of these powerful American celebrities who have worked with Nikita Mikhalkov. There's the picture of Brad Pitt on the red carpet at Cannes in 2019, when everyone knew that Mikhalkov was close to Putin, and Brad Pitt has his arm around Mikhalkov as if they are old friends. And I think to myself, if it didn't harm these powerful men working with him, I'm nobody. Will it really be so bad if I say yes to this film? And if the film itself is not propaganda, if it's a human film, which the script tells me that it is, perhaps making the film a good film will illuminate some of the darkness that is around it. And I wonder to myself whether I'm doing something very, very bad and very, very wrong, but it doesn't feel like it. And that's when I start to wonder whether there's something missing inside me, because I want to do this film. I can make peace with it. I charge thee, Mephisto, return, and change thy shape, thou art too ugly to attend on me. Go and come back as an old Academy Award-winning Russian film director, and I will sell a song to thee. So that's the moral dilemma part of the show. We just go on to the last bit.
This was happening during the lockdown, right?
This was all happening during the lockdown.
But the lockdown ended, and you got an invitation to...
Well, actually, it was an opening in the lockdown, and I got an invitation to go to Moscow for a fitting.
And something happened in Moscow that reminded you of your mother.
So I was
lived at the time in Vienna.
No, my mother was from Vienna, and she moved after the war. So she was part of a very, very working class family. Yeah, perhaps I'll just read that sequence of me in Moscow and how we make the time-bend connections. Putin makes the toast for Mikukov, and we guests all stand up and raise our glasses. But instead of sitting down again, there seems to be some sort of reorganization in the gala dinner room. People begin to leave their tables, and they are now coming to the center of the room. Svetlana, the translator who is with me, is very, very stressed now, and she's even more efficient than usual. She begins to push me forward in the small of my back and moves me forward, and I realize that we're going into a greeting line. I watch him from a distance. I try to see whether I can detect any of the sickness and madness that everybody speaks about. It is true that Putin holds his right arm very, very stiff. But then I know that all former KGB officers do this. They're trained to be aware and to have their guns at the ready, and all of the men who are flanking him are also have very stiff arms, so unless the whole lot of them have had a stroke, I don't think that there's anything wrong with this man, as much as we might want there to be. He's coming closer now. He's not bad looking. He's attractive. Perhaps all powerful men are attractive. Perhaps Kissinger was right. Perhaps I am intoxicated. Perhaps this is a film. He turns his head towards me and time bends. It's Vienna, 1940. My uncle Edward is in Dachau concentration camp, prisoner number 254137, category Rotpunkt, political prisoner. The same year, my family, 12 people in one room in the working class district of Henals, the 10th district, they are eating a rat cooked in gasoline because they're so hungry and there's nothing else to eat. The same year, my cousin Olga, who is a U-boat, an U-boat, which means that she has been hidden in a cellar for 3 years because she is yellow-starred, and if we say her name, she will die. And later, when my mother was able to come out and come to England after the war to train as a nurse, the British asked her, why on earth didn't your family just leave Vienna when Hitler came to power? And my mother said, because we were fucking poor. Yes, we were poor. Though there was always enough money for the movies, and this is like a movie. The dome of his head and his jawline and the way he carries himself. And he's coming closer now. And he has blue eyes, narrowed, not giving much away, the same blue eyes as Anthony Hopkins, although a lot of people have the same colour blue eyes as Anthony Hopkins. He's speaking to the person next to me now, and Svetlana is very, very tense. And as he turns, she says my name, and he's standing in front of me, and he looks at me for a moment, puts his head on one side and holds out his hand, and time bends again. It's Vienna, 1938. My mother is 9 years old. It is a cold winter day. She and her classmates are taken out of school by their favorite teacher, Fräulein Semmelweis, who is always so sweet and happy, but today she doesn't look happy at all. They're put on the number 10 tram in a Hauptstrasse, and her nulls are taken into the first district, to the Rathaus, to the town hall. The children stand cold and bored. The teachers look worried. And then my mother sees a film crew, and she says to her best friend Elizabeth, "Schau, Liesel, es ist ein Filmteam, ein Filmteam." But the film crew are cruel and unkind and violent to the children, and they smack them and they corral them and they move them around as they film them. And later, many years later, my mother would say, they were moving us around to make it look like there was more of a crowd than there was. It was an old film trick, but we were not that many people there. They moved us around, they moved us around. Soon there is a stirring and a tension and a shift in the air, and the great iron doors of the Rathaus open, and a group of men in great coats come out, and they are surrounding one man in particular, the Chancellor, and the teachers say, raise your arms, children, raise your arms. But we didn't want to raise our arms. And Fräulein Semmelweis tries to drag my mother's arm up into the salute, and my mother pulls her arm away, afraid. And the Chancellor is standing before them now, right in front of them. 85 years bent to this moment, these 3 degrees of separation. Hitler, my mother, me, you. Later I asked her, what was he like, Mum? What was he like? It was a cold day and he was sweating. We remembered this. It was as if he had Vaseline all over his face. His face was grey. He was standing 2 meters from us. His hair was greasy. His eyes were black eyes. What did he say to you? I can't remember. What did he say? He screamed at us. He screamed. He was so angry. It was like he hated us. We knew he was probably a bad man. But we knew better than to ask. "1938, my mother, 2022, me, Putin." I shake his hand.
Now tell me this. Why did you think we would not understand it?
Yes, I was right. As all actresses, you why did I think you wouldn't?
I'm not blaming you.
I assumed
about the prejudice that is there in the West.
I thought, because you're so close to Ukraine, that your sympathies would be so absolute, especially people who go to the theatre, that your sympathies for Ukraine are so absolute, so visceral, and they have to be. This is a war that you're fighting as well. Because I know the people in Slovakia, Poland, who speak in that sense as if they are being invaded and we will be next. And to even mention, I don't really even mention Ukraine in the show, and I don't really say anything negative about Putin. He's a good-looking man. I don't think I need to say anything negative about him, because we all know. But I thought the idea of me coming over and saying, I have this terrible moral dilemma of whether I should dance with the devil would just be tone deaf for what you're going through. Although it's the right story to tell my people, I was worried in Norway that the same thing might happen, because there's very, very passionate left-wing politics in Norway. They're always demonstrating for something. I found the zeitgeist. It was the right thing to talk about moral hypocrisy, because everyone was confused felt they weren't doing the right thing. So here, that illuminated was a relief.
Do you have any questions you would like to ask? Už klidně česky, pokud se necítíte komfortně, já to přeložím.
I'm curious what kind of pushback you received, you talked about earlier, from the audience in Norway or UK?
In Norway, no pushback at all. It's without doubt the greatest success of my career. I've never done anything on this level. The reviews in the national newspapers have been you know, for example, the Norwegian equivalent of the New York Times, and I, you know, I don't read reviews because I've had a lot of bad reviews in my time, so I choose not to read them, but I've been told that they are extraordinary. The reviewer from that paper had lived in Ukraine for 4 years. His ex-wife was Ukrainian, so I was just convinced he was going to crucify me. And he just said I'd knocked it out of the ballpark. This was the story we needed to tell if we were to understand why Putin came to power. We must look at our own hypocrisy. The West will not help you because they have nothing to complain about, so let us shine a light on that. So at the moment I've had no pushback other than one young actor said, I don't see the moral dilemma. I would have said no. My response to him was, you're nobody and Robert De Niro doesn't want to be in a film with you anytime soon. I don't think this is going to be a problem. You asshole, fuck off. I just made, why are you saying this to me? You know, oh, that makes you the better person. It's not about me, you know. So that's the worst. As up to this point, that's the worst thing that's happened. Ukrainians who are in Norway don't want to see it. They've been told about it and said this might not. And I totally get that. They're like, I don't want to hear the man's name, and I certainly don't want to hear the man's name presented in any light that is not absolutely critical, because he is a mass murderer. And that's.
We talked earlier about the sort of scorn or.
Yes, that's from my other works.
Oh, okay.
When that's not for this. This is the other works that I have done, not for this work. But I was thought that this might happen, but this time I seem to have found the balance. You can Google me and see the trouble I've got myself into. Goodbye.
Yes, please.
So you said that you don't speak with language, political language, but here we will understand. So I think maybe it's my feeling of your story that the language of money, maybe it's this the language in different level from you and so we have one level. For us it's not important money. For us it's important moral feeling, and maybe for other people it's different level, and it's money. So this is their language with Putin and with actors, rich actors. What do you think about it?
I'm very careful of engaging in any conversation that contains conceptually the idea of we here in Czechoslovakia. So I think, or we this group. So I've learned to be very careful of that. I think you maybe, yeah. I think the capitalist film pyramid is in place here. My play is 1.5 hours long. You've heard 12 minutes of it, so obviously I think you know me well enough to know I'm a woman of nuance and complexity. So we cover that. But the capitalism of the cult of personality is, you're right. We're talking about the cult of personality. Putin's incredibly Western in the sense that he's a star for his people, and that has enormous currency. The star, the cult of the celebrity, has massive currency, and you're right. I think everyone cares about money. I think if you're, especially if you're poor and you can't, if you come from great poverty as I do, you will care about it more than those who have not had to worry about it. And I don't. My desire to or the character, the version of myself I play in the play, if you will. It is pyramidical, that you're reaching for the holy grail of your profession, you know. And I think we're trained to do that in the West, and I think you guys are as well, because you're, from what I can see, you're as Western as anybody else, and your values are not holier at all than ours. I have a line in the play which is trust and society and the socialist theatre practice is dead. Make way for the capitalist film pyramid. I will bow there and I will be anointed. So it's quite biblical, the ideas of I will Mephisto, I will sell my soul, because I'm so tired of doing the right thing. I'm not, but at some points you can be honest with yourself and say, I'm so tired of trying to be a good person. It's very hard to be a good citizen, a good member of planet Earth.
Because you mentioned when you reacted to Putin's scheme that the audience leaving knowing more. Really didn't make the players knowing more. What was your?
I gotta be honest with you. My producer said you need to do this play. I didn't want to do it. I thought maybe I would write a book. From the moment I started talking to Nikita Mikhalkov, I started making notes. So I thought it would be a book where I'd make the movie, and then I could write a book about behind the scenes of working with someone like this. And then I saw that one of the theatres in Oslo had put a call out for political plays with a documentary basis to it. And my producer sent one paragraph project description of this story, and usually they require a manuscript and everything, and they just said we want it straight away. And I was like, and then the Cultural Council and the money again, and the Freedom of Expression Foundation gave us funding for it. I didn't really know this was happening. My producers did it because I've been trying to withdraw from theatre because I've been so abused because of the work I've done. Very ill, and so it was suicide, and so I've been trying to get out of it in a way. And although I'm well now, and lo and behold, the zeitgeist was there. Everyone wanted it. And suddenly we were in this position where the funding was there, and we should make a play. So I didn't have any passionate, burning desire to share with the audience this story because. Quite honestly, I think there's a lot of narcissism involved in that. I see that from my community of liberal Western artists. We're going to tell people things they need to hear, and it's like, I don't think I'm that important. But I do think I can, I'm good at what I do, which is telling stories, and other than that, what you do with the information has to be entirely up to you. But I'm also very sick of the hypocrisies in my own profession. Hollywood stars doing their thing, the Me Too thing that happened, so this is all the link for Trump. Suddenly Hollywood is so aware of the terrible Me Too situation, and yet the same shit's still going down. It's just found its way, to manifest itself without being punished. So I don't like the idea that, see, we've solved the problem, everyone, and it's very famous privileged people who are saying that, when the problem for the working class in the profession, because for me it's all about class. I'm working class, but it's all about class. Everything's about class. The people on the lowest rungs of any professional ladder are not going to benefit for whatever Me Too confessions are in the New York Times by famous actresses. We're a terrible, terrible species, actresses. So my motivation was very unholy, and just I did it because it had to be there. I wonder whether the writing of it, because I've written it as well, obviously, and the way I perform it, which is even more colder in when I do the show, is benefited by me not caring. Look, of course I care on a personal level, but I just don't want it to bleed over to you. I didn't want the audience to feel responsible for anything, for me or the situation in Ukraine. So that's my clumsy answer to your very elegant and interesting question. You're getting restless now, and the seats are hard for mums. Did you have a question?
Hi. I was wondering, when you were speaking about the moral dilemma, do you think it's a thing more of outwards? Like, what could be the consequence look at me and how is this going to affect me? Or do you think that the moral dilemma it's more between yourself, like how am I gonna live with this and how it's gonna affect me making this decision? Yeah.
Beautiful question. And of course, one thing we know about human beings is we have a pendulum swing. And absolutely, the moral dilemma is a swing between both of those. So I can comfort myself by saying, fuck it, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to make this movie. And when I've convinced myself of that, those are the roles I've gone through, I don't care because they've thrown so much shit at me even when I haven't done anything wrong. So I no longer care to be an obedient child because I'm going to get swallowed whatever I do. So when I convince myself that I don't care, I'm going to make this movie, and then I'm left with my own, I think of my mother, who was an ardent, and my uncle Edward at Dachau concentration camp. If my mother was alive today, I'm not sure if we'd be sitting here now. I'm not sure if I think she would have had some powerful words to say about this. I've not told my family in Vienna about the content of my dinner with Putin. They think I'm doing a heavy anti-Putin show, and they're so proud of me, because they're all old fucking communists. They're 90, and they're still shouting at the television screen, and as political as the day that my Uncle Edward was fighting in the Spanish Civil War. So the shame I feel of what my family might say. On the other hand, I think my mother, who was a cinephile, get it. The bottom line is this, though. This is the really interesting question, I think, which I do touch on in the play, is can you separate the man from his art? Because the movie itself is beautiful. The movie is actually written by two writers called the Preshnyakov brothers, who are amazing. So in the sequence where I'm talking to Tatiana, the Russian journalist, there's a sequence I cut out, which I have in the play, where I say to her, you know, when I tell her that I'm going to be in the film with Nikita Mikhalkov, and she gives this long list of how he's a terrible man, and at the end she says, I don't know how important all of this is for you. She said it very sarcastically to me in real life. What I then said to her was, have you heard of the brothers Preshnyakov? And she went, yeah, they're fantastic. They're great writers, young writers, wonderful. And I said, they've written this manuscript for Mikhalkov. And she didn't know what to say. So the question of who's working for him and who's not, these adored men was something. But I think what my family experienced in the Second World War, as of course many of yours did, that really enough were killed in the concentration camps. And my mother's sense for fascism and colluding with fascism for your own gain, she didn't like that. On the other hand, it's a very well told story, and I'm a very good actress, so she'd appreciate that. But that would be the only sticking point. If my mother was still alive, not sure. I have to think about it. I'll say in the play, I don't really care. I want to do this film. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Am I a fascist? Am I actually devoid of any real politics? I play politics because I'm an artist and I'm supposed to, but I'm so tired of having to fly the flags for certain things. And as everyone who gets older, you moderate your politics. And as I have said many times, and I must say this publicly, that I'm in the West, I don't know how it is here, the intelligentsia, the liberal left intelligentsia, if you will, are becoming so intolerant. It is becoming frightening. Cancellations, doxing, boycotting, ruining people's lives because you're not, here's the thing, because you're not thinking the right way. Well, that reminds me of some shit from back in the day. I have students who have told me in my creative writing classes, these are 19-year-olds, there are certain topics they will not write about. I say, why? What? Well, no, because we know that there are certain characters we couldn't write for a play. Why not? Well, if I don't have the experience of that character, if she may be a woman of colour, or she may be queer or disabled, then it's absolutely unacceptable for me to appropriate that experience of that marginalised person and think that I, as a white woman, for example, can speak to her experience. And my response is, would you write about a pedophile? Yeah, definitely. You know. And a Nazi? Yeah, I would take those down. I was like, I want to see this list of characters we're not supposed to write, because this is antithetical to the absolute genus, the DNA of an artist, is to write whatever you need to write about. And because we have empathy, we're able to put ourselves in those shoes. So I find that very frightening when they say, when I'd ask them, what are you afraid of? And their fear is not the internal moral pendulum, is that they will be annihilated by their community online. That's the Norway, where we don't really have problems, you know. And I find I'm quite interested in what the art experience is here for artists, what you can and can't write about. This is something we've been infected by from the good old US of A. I comfort myself, United States has gone down the fucking toilet. I can't believe they voted Donald Trump. Well, it started with Bush, obviously, but don't get me started. And I just quietly remind myself that they did give us Jimi Hendrix and jazz. So, you know, that does balance it out. I'd rather have, yeah, but I can live with Trump so long as I've still got Hendrix.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of topics we could cover, and there's a lot of hours we could spend in this stand talking to Kate. It's getting old, it's getting cold, and it's getting late, and she's a really uncomfortable. So I would call it an end, and I would thank you, Kate, for a great talk and great performance, and I think we should give you a round of applause.
It's always a two-way street, and you've been absolutely lovely. I mean, I'm watching like a radar is going like this. Are they with me? Have I done something wrong? I'm quite exhausted. And your grace and generosity is very touching. So thank you.